Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Hamilton. Now, we welcome you here in the sanctuary and those who have opted to join us online. And please ensure your electronic devices are in worship mode. Please feel free to use your phones if you have an accessible hearing thing. We have the T-coil in the sanctuary. My name is Susan Johnston, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the service leader this morning. And I would like to thank all those who helped create this service. The tech people today are Brian and Josh. Rachel is playing our piano for our hymns. And the ushers are Kathy Brown and anyone else, Kathy? Catherine. Kathy and Catherine up there. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Susanna Reid. Susanna Reid is inspired by the potential of community. She has worked as a municipal planner for more than 20 years and is a member of the Ontario Professional Planners Institute and the Canadian Institute of Planners. Together with the Maitland Trail Association in Goderich, she is a recipient of the June Callwood Outstanding Achievement Award for Voluntarism. Susanna is a member of the Stratford Unitarian Church. She is Jen Reid's sister. And together, the two of them grew up in the Hamilton Unitarian Church. Susanna will offer reflections about the fifth principle, gathered while working as a municipal planner in rural Ontario. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey of faith or search for meaning, today you are one of us, and you are welcome here in this house of worship. Our mission is to nurture one another, serve the community, and inspire action to heal the world. Now please settle into your seat for this morning's prelude, which is Come in Peace by our choir.
Come in peace, come in love, come in grace from above. Come in light, let it shine. Come in Spirit divine. Come in peace, come in love, come in grace from above. Come in light, let it shine. Come in Spirit divine. Come in Spirit, come in Spirit, come in Spirit divine.
We are not the first people on this land, nor will we be the last. We acknowledge our connection to the web of existence, honoring the past and preparing for the future. The stewardship of the original people who lived here preserved this place for our generation. So we seek to be respectful stewards of this place for those who follow. We are blessed with a space and opportunities to strive and live our common principles, to bring justice and equity with compassion into our daily lives. Let us give thanks to those who cared for this land before us. Ian, come on. Each time we gather, we light a chalice. It reminds us that we are entering sacred space and time together. It reminds us of our connection to Unitarian Universalists all over the world. Please join me in our chalice lighting words. May this flame be our light of friendship and love. Our call to worship today is from words from Mark Morrison Reid. The central task of the religious community is to unveil bonds that bind us all. There is a connectiveness, a relationship discovered amidst the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the Church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens, and our strength is renewed. Our first hymn this morning is 580 in the grey hymnal, the words on the wall. Yes? Thank you. Sorry, hymn 118, sorry. Oh yes, I forgot the story first. See, mistake number 1. There we go. Story, please.
Good morning. My name is Jenny, and I want to welcome especially the children. I know we have one back there. Welcome, and my daughter over there, and any other children of any age we can welcome. There are activities here for anybody of any age, coloring pages if you need to keep your hands busy while you're listening. And unfortunately, there's no official children's program today, but if you need the Rainbow Room open, then you can just come up to me and let me know, and then I can help you out with that, okay? Today's story is called The Quilt Maker's Gift by Jeff Brumbo and illustrated by Gail DeMarkin. Yeah. There once was a quilt maker who kept a house in the blue misty mountains up high. Here and there, and wherever the sun warmed the earth, it was said that she made the prettiest quilts anyone had ever seen. The blues seemed to come from the deepest parts of the ocean, the whites from the northernmost snows, the greens and purples from the abundant wildflowers, the reds, oranges, and pinks from the most wonderful sunsets. Some said there were magic in her fingers. Some whispered that her needles and cloth were gifts of the bewitched. And still others said the quilts really fell to earth from the shoulders of passing angels. Many people climbed her mountain, pockets bursting with gold, hoping to buy one of the wonderful quilts. But the woman would not sell them. I give my quilts to those who are poor or homeless, she told all who knocked on her door. They are not for the rich. On the darkest and coldest nights, the woman would make her way down the mountain to the town below. There she would wander the cobblestone streets until she came upon someone sleeping outside in the chill. She would then take a newly finished quilt from her bag, wrap it around their shivering shoulders, tuck them in tight, and tiptoe away. and then the very next morning, with a steaming cup of blackberry tea, she would begin a new quilt. Now, there lived nearby a very powerful and greedy king who liked nothing better than to receive presents. The hundreds of thousands of beautiful gifts he got for Christmas and his birthday were never enough. A law was passed that the king would celebrate his birthday twice a year, and when that still wasn't enough, he ordered his soldiers to search the kingdom for those few people who had not yet given him a gift. Over the years, the king came to own almost all of the prettiest things in the world. Throughout the castle, from top to bottom, in drawers, on shelves, in boxes and trunks, closets and sacks, all of the king's treasures were stashed. They glimmered and shimmered and glittered and glowed. They were practical and whimsical and mysterious and magical. And yet, with all of these treasures to enjoy, the king never smiled. He was not happy at all. Somewhere, there must be one beautiful thing that will finally make me happy, he was often heard to say, and I will have to have it. One day, a soldier rushed into the palace with news about a magical quilt maker who lived in the mountains. The king stamped his foot. "And how is it that this person has never given me one of her quilts as a gift?" he demanded. "Well, she only makes them for the poor, Your Majesty," the soldier replied, "and she will not sell them for any amount of money." "Well, we shall see about that," the king roared. "Bring me a horse and 1,000 soldiers." And they set off in search of the quilt maker. But when they arrived at her house, the quilt maker merrily laughed. "Ha! My quilts are for the poor and needy, and I can easily see that you are neither." "I want one of those quilts," the king demanded. "It might be the one thing that will finally make me happy." The woman thought for a moment. "Well, make presents of everything you own," she said, "and then I will make a quilt for you. With each gift you give, I'll sew in another piece. And when at last all your things are gone, your quilt will be finished." "Give away my wonderful treasures?" cried the king. "I don't give things away, I take them." And with that, he ordered his soldiers to seize the beautiful star quilt from the quilt maker. But when they rushed upon her, she tossed the quilt out the window, and a great gust of wind carried it up, and away. The king was now very angry. He marched the woman down through town and up another mountain where he had his royal iron makers shape a thick bracelet of iron. And then they chained her to a rock in the cave of a sleeping bear. Once more, the king asked her for a quilt, and once again she refused. "Well, very well then," the king replied, "I'll leave you here, and when this bear awakens, I'm sure he will make a very fine breakfast of you." Later, when the bear opened his eyes and saw the woman, he stood on his hind legs and gave such a mighty roar that the woman's bones rattled. "Oh, well, it's no wonder you're so grouchy," the quilt maker said. "You've nothing but rocks on which to rest your head at night. Bring me an armful of pine needles, and with my shawl, I'll make you a great big pillow." And that is what she did. No one had ever been so kind to the bear before, so he broke the iron bracelet and asked her to spend the night. Now, although the king was very good at being greedy, he was very bad at being mean. All that night, he could not sleep for thinking about the poor woman in the cave. Oh my, what have I done?" he wailed. So he and his soldiers marched in their pajamas up to the cave to save her. But when they arrived, the king found the quilt maker and the bear having a delicious breakfast of honey. The king completely forgot about being sorry and became angry all over again. He ordered the royal island makers to build an island barely big enough for the woman to stand on her tiptoes. And once again, the king asked for a quilt, and once again, she said no. "Very well," the king replied. "Tonight, when you are too tired to stand and you lie down to sleep, you'll drown." And the king left her all alone on the tiny island. Shortly after he left, the quilt maker saw a sparrow flying across the great lake. A cold, fierce wind was blowing, and it did not look like the poor bird would make it to shore. The quilt maker called to it, and it stopped to rest on her shoulder. The poor, tired sparrow was shivering, so the woman quickly made it a coat from scraps from her purple vest. When it was warmed and the wind had stopped, the bird flew off, but it was very grateful to the quilt maker for what she had done. Soon the sky darkened as the air filled with a huge cloud of sparrows. thousands of wings beating together, they swooped down, lifted the woman in their little beaks, and carried her safely to shore. And again, that night, the king could not sleep for thinking about the woman alone on the islands. Oh my, what have I done? He moaned. So he woke up his sleepy soldiers, and they marched in their pajamas down to the lake to set the woman free. But when they arrived, she was sitting on a tree limb, sewing tiny purple coats for all the sparrows. I give up, the king shouted. What must I do for you to give me a quilt? As I said, the woman answered, give away all of the things that you own, and I'll sew a quilt for you. And with each gift that you give, I'll add another piece to your quilt. I can't do that, the king cried. I love all my wonderful, beautiful things. But if they don't make you happy, the woman replied, what good are they? Oh, that's true, the king sighed. And he thought about what she had said for a long, long time. So long that weeks went by. Oh, all right, he finally muttered. If I must give away my treasures, then I must. The king went to his castle and searched top to bottom for something he could bear to give away. Frowning, he finally came to a single marble. But the boy who received it simply smiled so brightly in return, the king went back for more things. Eventually, he brought out a pile of velvet coats and went about the town, giving them to people dressed only in rags. All were so pleased that they marched up and down the street in a grand parade. But still, the king did not smile. So now the king fetched 100 waltzing blue Siamese cats and the dozen fish that were clear as glass. Then the king ordered his merry-go-round with the real horses to be brought out. Children cried with delight and cartwheeled around him, and just the smallest of smiles began to show on the king's face. The king looked about him and saw all the dancing and merrymaking and happiness that the gifts had brought. A child took hold of his hand and pulled him into the dance, and now the king really smiled and even laughed out loud. How can this be? He cried. How can I feel so happy about giving my things away? Bring everything out. Bring it all out at once. Meanwhile, the quilt maker kept her word and started making a special quilt for the king. With each gift he gave, she added another piece to his quilt. The king kept on giving and giving. When at last there was no one left in town who had not received something, the king decided to go out into the world and find others who might be in need of his gifts. But before he left, the king promised the quilt maker he would send a sparrow back to her each and every time he gave something away. Morning, noon, and night, the wagons rolled out of town, each piled high with the king's wonderful things. And for years and years, messenger sparrows flew to the quilt maker's windowsill as the king slowly emptied his wagons, trading his treasures for smiles all around the world. And on the quilt maker worked, and piece by piece, the king's quilt grew more and more beautiful. Finally, one day, a weary sparrow flew to her window and perched on her needle. She knew then and there that it was the last messenger, so she put a final stitch in the quilt and started down the mountain in search of the king. And after a long search, she finally found him. The king's royal clothes were now in tatters, and his toes poked out of his boots. Yet his eyes glittered with joy, and his laugh was wonderful and thunderous. The quilt maker unfolded the king's quilt from her bag. It was so big that hummingbirds and butterflies fluttered about it. And standing on tiptoe, she tenderly wrapped it around him. "What's this?" cried the king. "As I promised you long ago," the woman answered. "When the day came that you yourself were poor, only then would I give you a quilt." The king's great sunny laugh made green apples fall and flowers turn his way. "But I'm not poor," he said. "I may look poor, but in truth, my heart is so full to bursting, filled with memories of all of the happiness that I've given and received. I'm the richest man I know." "Nevertheless," the quilt maker said, "I made this quilt for you." "Thank you," replied the king. "I'll take it, but only if you accept a gift from me. There is one last treasure I have just for you." And from his rickety rundown wagon, the king brought out his throne. "It's really quite comfortable," the king said, "and just the thing for long days of sewing." And from that day on, the king often came to the quilt maker's house in the clouds, By day, the quilt maker sewed beautiful quilts that she would not sell, and at night, the king took them down to the town. There he searched out the poor and downhearted, never happier than when he was giving something away.
Thank you. Now we'll sing our first hymn, number 118 in the Green Hymn Book. Always gets people going, that one. Our offering today is a reminder of the spirit of generosity that is in our heart of our religious community. And when we share our financial resources, we ensure the continued existence of the church. We are going to listen while we are collecting to a clip called "We Shall Be Known" by the UU Thrive Choir.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we cry. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in
these gifts, we are very thankful. In these moments of contemplation, I invite you to relax. Close your eyes if you like. And following our reading, there will be a few moments of silence, followed by music, where you are welcome to come up and light a candle of joy or concern. Our short reading this morning is by Jacob Taft. It is the language that makes us human. One half of the language is to listen. Silence can exist without speech, but speech cannot live without silence. Listen to the speech of others, but listen more to their silence. To pray is to listen to the revelations of nature, to the meaning of events. To listen to music is to listen also to silence and find that the stillness is deep and enriched. We come now to a time in our service when we affirm the ways that we are connected with one another. Now, there are no sorrows that have been sent in for us to connect today, but we do have a joy to read. Jean Jacobs has recently received an Ontario Senior Achievement Award from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. It's based on her involvement in the Operations for Food Insecurity efforts and poverty reduction. And this is through the Eva Rothwell Centre and the Hub. Okay. I think I've lost my place because there aren't any things to say. Okay, so now we celebrate the joys and rejoice in the happiness that flows through our community and hold those in this space today to remember that we are not alone. We now would like to welcome our guest this morning. So, Susanna.
When I was growing up in the Hamilton Unitarian Church, part of the religious education curriculum was attending services of other denominations. So I remember that our church school went to a Quaker service and we sat in silence until people were called to speak. And we went to a Catholic church, you know, our little RE Unitarian class sitting on a wooden pew in the cathedral building that was a Catholic church. And we went to a Jewish synagogue, which was cool because it was on a Saturday, and that meant we could still come to our own church. We were taught that there were many different faiths, to respect all faith traditions, and that our opportunity was to discern from all the different ways to live a good life what our own particular journey would be like. We were taught Unitarians find opportunities to learn from religious texts and poets, philosophers, and the lessons of our own lived lives. So this is the story of my faith journey working as a municipal planner in rural Ontario over the past, in rural Ontario. It has been the central part of my life over the past 20 years. Before I talk about the faith journey that has been my work, I want to introduce you to the fifth Unitarian principle. It may be that you haven't committed it to memory. Last fall, we had the first annual general meeting of the Stratford Unitarian Church. After exploring and working on becoming a church for 14 years, we now have 25 members. And thanks to everyone here who came to our first AGM. It was wonderful to have the support and participation of other Unitarians in Southern Ontario. A couple months before the AGM, I was reading the 8 Unitarian principles on the back of our Stratford Order of Service, and I got stuck on the 5th principle. The right of conscience and use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. The right of conscience and use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. Okay, so I'm a nerd when it comes to community development, communities generally, and I'm particularly into local democracy. And I am also really jazzed about organizational structure generally, which I know is not everyone's jam. But I was blown away by how cool the 5th principle is. Our Unitarian faith invites and affirms participating in democracy in our churches and in society as part of our practice of being in relationship with each other and with civil society. I mean, I think that is incredibly cool. My journey to becoming a municipal planner started in Stratford in the late 90s. I was an environmentalist. Together with a group of friends and people in the community, we are working on reducing the community's ecological footprint, or educating people about that, through insulating homes and installing low-flow toilets, and changing behavior around lawn pesticides, and active transportation. We attended council meetings and we started organizations. We held a dandelion festival complete with t-shirts. We organized a conference about genetically modified food, and we all read the local paper. And we talked about what was going on in Stratford and in Perth County, which is the rural area around Stratford. Around about that time, some of my friends were running for city council. I felt connected, a sense of belonging. We were talking about participating in the local democracy. We were making a difference. We were talking about what mattered, and we were contributing in a meaningful way. I wanted to understand how decisions were made and how local change happened. And so I went off to the University of Guelph to complete a master's in rural planning and development. Municipal planning is all about how land is used. It's about where factories and stores and houses and schools and parks and churches and farms, where all those specific land uses will go in the landscape. It's sort of like a real-life SimCity, if you have any experience with that video game. It provides very specific requirements like the permitted height and density of new buildings, like how many people are going to be within an area, and where buildings can be located in a lot. It is vast. There's a lot to know. The planning regulations are determined by both local zoning and policy, and provincial legislation and provincial policy. The process identifies what studies are required in order to make decisions, which could be anything from demonstrating that the soil of a site is not contaminated, to how a property will be serviced with water and sewer, or how noisy it will be, how noisy the new land use will be, or how noisy the existing land uses are around a new residential subdivision, for example, or how the new development will protect a standing forest. Municipal planning is administrative. It is contentious. It is detailed-oriented, and it is aspirational. I throw myself into the aspirational, celebrate the authenticity of community conflict, and I tolerate the day-to-day administration with the narrative that I am contributing to the public good. The public good is the core of professional planning. In practice, this means analyzing policy with an eye to the intersection of social well-being, environmental protection, and supporting livelihoods or economic development. So this intersection of these three spheres, this Venn diagram, this intersection is the public good. And that's what planning is considering. So to give you like a broader sense of what can fall in these three spheres, social planning could be anything around accessibility or any sort of cultural amenity like parks and recreation or the arts. Or it could be anything around supporting people in a community, like how low-income households are supported, for example, or mental health and addictions. That would all fall in the social planning sphere. Environmental protection would be anything about protecting the natural resources, so a forest or a wetland, or anything about air quality, or greenhouse gas emissions, or waste management. Like, these are very broad buckets. And then economic development, of course, is where most people enter the discussion that is municipal planning, and it's about how we make our livings. When a municipality receives a development application for a subdivision or a manufacturing facility or a livestock operation or a school, the municipal planner is tasked with defining the public good, the intersection of these three spheres. This includes ensuring new homes will not have air quality issues from neighboring industries, ensuring active transportation infrastructure is incorporated into new development, and that livestock barns have adequate setbacks from new homes. At Guelph, I learned that development means change, and planning is the process to make change happen. I was taught that a person enters planning with a preference for environmental protection or economic development or social well-being. And being a planner means finding the balance. So planners are looking at balance. Community planning feels creative to me, like improvisational theater. If we imagine the entire community to be the stage, the municipal official plan provides a script, and the Planning Act, the provincial legislation, is the rule book that outlines how any developer or citizen or property owner or organization enters the stage. Entering the stage could be submitting a planning application to make a change on a property, or it could be attending a public meeting to comment on a planning application as a member of the public or an organization. And actors include the municipal staff, so the planners and the clerk and the chief administrative officer and the building officials and the engineers. And it includes council. Local council is the decision maker, and it might also include consultants, stakeholder groups, like the Downtown BIA or the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. Every actor represents a unique perspective and has a decorum informed by their background and perhaps their privilege in society. Over the 20 years that I spent working as a municipal planner in rural Ontario, I have noticed that many, many people never enter the stage that is community planning. They never come into the theater. Often, when people come into the community stage, they bring voice to their own interest. Many people come to public meetings with concerns about the impact of a development on their own property value. I find this both surprising and appropriate. I find it surprising that the public, the community, doesn't show up to talk about the public good. And then I think, well, I guess that's the job of the planner. The planner's role is to name all the interests at play in a land use change and bring that observation to council as the decision maker. I was surprised early in my career to experience the forcefulness of individuals when I was offering planning comments. In a society renowned for being polite, Canadians are often not polite when it comes to planning. I remember thinking that my efforts to thoughtfully analyze land use planning and zoning would be gratefully received by developers, local council, and/or the public. It is rarely the case. After I had been working as a planner for a while, I attended a service here at the Hamilton Unitarian Church that focused on the role of service. It was a significant aha moment to put together the idea of service and my role as a public servant, and the realization that I was in service to the public, to local democracy. It started informing how I responded to people who communicated with me forcefully, changing my behavior from a defensive response to more acknowledging difference and outlining the process. After some reflection, I developed a story that perhaps one's relationship to one's place, a home or a property, has a similar importance to their relationship to their family. And meeting a municipal bureaucrat whose job it is to tell them what they can do on their property is affronting, or at least surprising to many people. people rarely act as their best selves in that moment. There was one notable exception. I worked on an official plan in the north part of Huron County where there's an Old Order Mennonite community. This community contributed to the development of a new local official plan with care and thoughtfulness. They were organized. They knew what they valued. They informed themselves about the planning process. They had read the draft official plan. They were considerate of municipal staff. They were polite. They articulated the municipality's values, which were different than their own, as an expression of respect. It felt practiced. Both the content and the tone of their contribution felt embodied in respect and care for the democratic process. I thought that maybe it was what faith in action looked like. About 8 years after I started working as a municipal planner, I was introduced to a type of communication referred to as nonviolent. Nonviolent is what Gandhi used in responding to the British rule in India. It's a translation of the Sanskrit word ahimsa. And one definition I found of ahimsa is loving in response to a feeling of hatred in myself. Nonviolent communication, perhaps like democracy, is simple to understand and difficult to practice. It offers that every feeling points to an underlying need. Once a need is identified, a person can reflect on next steps. Nonviolent communication offers that all needs are beautiful, and that forceful communication is a tragic expression of an unmet need. Being the recipient of forceful communication is a frequent occurrence in frontline municipal planning in rural Ontario. So I had lots and lots and lots of opportunity to practice holding space for unmet needs. For example, if someone came in and wanted to build a new shed, and they required a planning application because the proposed location of the shed didn't conform with zoning, I would anticipate that they would be frustrated, and I would name it. I could also guess that their needs around efficiency and affordability and perhaps ease hadn't been met. So I'd say something like, this will likely be frustrating for you. You'll need to submit a planning application in order to build in that location. And then I would explain the rationale for the zoning requirement. I would explain to them how their property is part of a larger geography, and that the role of municipal planning is to consider how what they wanted to do intersected with what is the public good. Perhaps I wouldn't use the language public good, but I would invite them to think beyond their own property. I found it effective. Generally, people seemed less likely to speak forcefully when I named their frustration. With practice, I was able to use nonviolent communication to welcome strong emotional experiences. This is useful in developing a response to any type of challenge. When I explored the needs underneath strongly spoken words, it was often an expression of caring, or wanting to be seen and known for someone's contributions, or as an expression of integrity, that people would be speaking forcefully because they cared or because they had a sense of what was right, or a desire for safety for someone's family. Once needs are identified, sometimes it's possible to use the planning process to identify strategies and respond. As I age, I have more appreciation of the gifts I received from generations that went before us. I am grateful for democracy and for the years of thought and practice that have contributed to its development. I am also grateful for my Unitarian faith and the years of thought and practice that have contributed to its development. The Unitarian Universalist website offers these words about the fifth principle. In our religious lives, the democratic process requires trust in the development of each individual conscience, a belief that such development is possible for each of us, as well as a commitment to cultivate our own conscience. We could call it a commitment to the value of each person. Theodore Parker, who was a Unitarian minister from the 1830s to the 1850s, wrote, "Democracy means not, I am as good as you are, but you are as good as I am. My connection with the sacred is only as precious as my willingness to acknowledge the same connection in others." So may it be.
Thank you, Susanna. Our next hymn is 121, We'll Build a Land.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captive go free. Where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. We'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers anointed by God may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them gardens instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers anointed by God may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters and peace like
in conclusion today, we would like to read a piece by Mahatma Gandhi, and it has a responsive line, and I will say this, and I'd like you to join in with me if you will, and that it says, "It is possible to live in peace." Can we say that, please? It is possible to live in peace.
If people with courage and vision can rise to lead in nonviolent action, the winter of despair can, in a twinkling of an eye, be turned into a summer of hope.
It is possible to live in peace.
Nonviolence is not a garment to be put on and off. Its seat is in the heart, and it must be an inseparable part of our being.
It is possible to live in peace.
Nonviolence is a quality of the heart. It cannot come by an appeal to the brain. It is a plant of slow growth, growing imperceptibly and surely.
It is possible to live in peace.
If a single person achieves the highest kind of love, it will be sufficient to neutralize the hate of millions.
It is possible to live in peace.
The future depends on what we do in the present.
It is possible to live in peace. We extinguish the chalice, but not the fire in our hearts. Our postlude is One Voice from the music company.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes our choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and a will to trust. Leave the rest behind, it will turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of